Hello, my friend, and welcome back or welcome to Something for Everybody. My name is Aaron Machbitz, and today's episode is a solo episode all about 3 mental performance techniques to transform potential into peak performance. Because we know the gap between good and great is measured in milliseconds, especially at the elite sport level, but the gap between good and great is also measured in milliseconds in just being an elite human being. Because at the NBA or Olympic level, where athletes' physical traits are remarkably similar, like most NBA players are between 6'7 and 6'11, for example, psychological skills or mental skills separate champions from competitors, from good to great. So for all of us who aren't elite athletes but aim to be elite humans, we must also train our mental skills to unlock our greatest potential. So systematic mental skills training gives all performers a significant edge. The science confirms what elite coaches have long observed. Mental training isn't nice to have, but a need to have to win. And so this is what we're going to talk about. The framework in this episode draws from performance psychology research, examining how athletes transform their potential into consistent excellence, which all of us can learn from and apply to our own lives. So, whether you're competing in sports, leading a team, a parent, or pursuing personal goals, these mental performance techniques can elevate your performance across every domain of life. By implementing these evidence-based approaches, you'll develop the foundation needed to be your best when it matters most. And so I'm going to go over 3 tips that I learned from Dr. Alex Albeck. And he has an amazing newsletter that I encourage everyone to sign up for. But I learned these 3 tips from Dr. Alex, who is a performance and sports psychologist. So here we go. Tip number 1, develop a challenge mindset rather than fearing pressure. By the way, episode 368 of this podcast is all about pressure. Go check it out. Pause this, go watch, listen to that, then come back to this episode, and you'll be much more attuned to what we're going over in these tips. But anyways, tip number 1, develop a challenge mindset rather than fearing pressure. Anyways, instead of viewing stress and pressure as threats to avoid, elite performers interpret them as challenges to embrace. This mindset shift isn't really about positive thinking. It's about reframing your physiological responses as resources that prepare you to perform. That's a really important sort of mindset shift, right? Stress is just your brain and body preparing to do something effortful. Your heart racing, heightened awareness, and energy surge aren't anxiety sabotaging your performance. They're your body sort of mobilizing exactly what you need to excel. In swimming competitors, for example, athletes who interpret these pre-race jitters as performance-enhancing energy outperform those who label the same sensations as debilitating anxiety. This, what it's called, facilitative interpretation. I love that. Facilitative interpretation allows them to channel nervous energy productively rather than fighting against it, right? You can also see this with business executives. Business executives use similar reframing about high stakes presentations. Instead of thinking, I'm nervous, oh God, they tell themselves, I'm energized and ready, or I'm excited. This subtle shift transforms that perceived threat into real opportunity. Even in daily life, this approach works wonders when facing a difficult conversation. Interpreting your physical response as, readiness rather than, stress or threat improves your communication or even your problem-solving abilities. The situation doesn't change, but your relationship to it transforms completely. And that's very important sort of distinction. Again, the situation doesn't change, but your relationship to it transforms completely. And then we have research with Navy SEALs revealed distinct, psychological profiles among elite performers. The most successful operators weren't those who experienced less stress, but those who interpreted stress as performance enhancing. And we know from Dr. Aaliyah Crumb's research specifically demonstrates that viewing stress as a challenge rather than a threat creates measurable physiological advantages, including improved cardiovascular efficiency and hormonal balance. If you want more deep insight on Dr. Ali Crumb's research and information, she did a beautiful episode on Huberman's podcast, which I encourage you to check out if this information interests you at all. And so we can use these key strategies and key steps to help us sort of implement what we're learning here about challenge and stress and the sort of response, right? We have to acknowledge the stress rather than suppress it, sort of step number one, and then welcome it as a sign of readiness, saying to yourself, I'm excited. I'm going to use this energy. I'm excited. I'm excited. And then channeling that energy or excitement towards your performance goals. Studies show that this mindset shift can improve performance by 5 to 15% in high pressure situations. I mean, that's a huge amount and something that we should really, really take a look at if we want to sort of transform our potential into peak performance, if we want to perform consistently at a high level. So take a drink and then we go to tip number 2. Here we go. Tip number 2, master internal association strategies for sustained performance. High-intensity sports or life in general require maintaining effort despite sort of mounting discomfort. Elite athletes don't get through it by, distracting themselves, which is sort of this idea of dissociation, but strategically focusing on it in productive ways, which is association, which is what this is about. Master internal association strategies. This means developing the ability to monitor internal sensations like breathing or muscle tension while maintaining technical focus. Rather than fighting against discomfort, they use it as information to optimize their performance. In rowing, Olympic-level athletes use associative strategies such as counting strokes while monitoring their breathing patterns. This internal focus allows them to maintain optimal technique even as they get tired, even as their fatigue intensifies. A study with elite rowers showed a 3.76% performance improvement when implementing internal association strategies. That's a massive gain in a sport where medals are decided by fractions of a second. I said at the beginning, right? Good to great is measured in milliseconds, not just in elite sport, but good to great is measured in milliseconds or moments or decisions or those small actions in life. And so if you want to go from good to great or unlock your potential, these are the strategies that will get you there, right? Sales professionals apply this approach during lengthy negotiations by staying attuned to their energy levels and communication clarity rather than, wishing the meeting would end or the sales call would end or it'd be over. This internal awareness allows them to adjust their approach based on real-time feedback from their body and mind, right? Anyways, for your daily fitness pursuits, rather than distracting yourself with music or TV during workouts, practicing that associative attention by focusing on breathing patterns and muscle engagement can transform routine exercise into mindfulness practice while improving physical results. That's called habit stacking, doing more things at once because you're a busy person with busy lives. Might as well stack those habits and get multiple things crushed at one chunk of time. Research consistently shows that while dissociation or distraction may temporarily reduce perceived exertion, association leads to superior performance, which is what we're after on a consistent basis. To use this strategy, you need specific cues tailored to your sport or performance domain. So you specifically have to understand what domain you live in, right? For example, swimmer could use the word air to help themselves breathe better. This technique works by synchronizing breath with movement while maintaining that technical focus. The most sophisticated performers develop a sort of hierarchical structure or hierarchical attention system, shifting between different internal cues based on the phase of performance and feedback from their body. So the next step in this process would be to understand your specific performance demand and come up with a system that best suits you and the internal association strategies presented. That's tip number 2, water, and then we go on to the last tip. And then we have tip number 3, implement volitional strategies to push through barriers. First, volitional means relating to the use of one's will. And so that's important to understand as we move into this tip or strategy. Elite performance requires overcoming moments when your mind signals it's time to quit. Volitional strategies are specific mental techniques that help you maintain effort and focus despite fatigue or discomfort or doubt. Unlike general motivation, volition is about having concrete mental tools ready before you need them. Because as we know, right, motivation is fleeting. And so we want to have these concrete tools that we can lean on in these sort of moments of discomfort or doubt or fatigue. And so we don't have to rely on making decisions or rely on our motivation. These strategies act as, psychological circuit breakers, interrupting the automatic sort of slow down response that occurs when facing significant resistance. You can look at track cyclists use these things called implementation intentions. They're specific if-then plans to manage predictable performance challenges. For example, if my legs start burning at the halfway point, then I'll focus on my breathing rhythm. This pre-committed, that's an important little word right there, This pre-committed response helps overcome the natural tendency to reduce effort when discomfort intensifies. Corporate leaders apply similar approaches when facing, project resistance. Rather than reacting emotionally to pushback, they implement prepared mental routines that preserve decision quality under pressure. The prepared response becomes automatic when triggered by the anticipated challenge, because we're not anticipating things to go perfectly all the time. We know obstacles are going to arise. We know that obstacles make us stronger. So we're anticipating these challenges or setbacks or speed bumps, and then how we're going to overcome them in the moment by anticipating them ahead of time with some of these implementation intentions. And I like to call these implementation intentions algorithms, because then your life is running on an algorithm. It has a rhythm to it. If this, then what? If this, then what? So we make the decision once, and then we have these strategies run on autopilot, because we know we can get decision fatigue. It's like a muscle that fatigues just like anything else. And so we have these algorithms which allows to our life to run on sort of a rhythm on a smooth basis, because we have this, if this, then what? If I brush my teeth, then I take a deep breath, whatever the case may be. But we have these things that run on autopilot, right? Because then we look at daily habits. Volitional strategies help maintain exercise consistency. When preparing for a morning workout, create specific algorithms or plans like, if I feel too tired when the alarm rings, then I immediately put on my workout clothes and walk for just 5 minutes. This helps override the momentary desire to skip the session. You have this plan in place for the challenges that might arise, because on a morning you might not want to wake up, but you have this implementation strategy, you have this algorithm set in place that you pre-committed to, that helps override sort of the momentary desire to skip the session. These strategies that we're talking about work by bypassing the need for conscious decision making during challenging moments, right? Research shows that implementation intentions significantly increase goal attainment by creating this sort of automatic behavioral response to anticipated obstacles. So how to make this work for you specifically? Well, develop both implementation intentions or algorithms. When X happens, I do Y, and shielding intentions that protect you from performance, from when your performance has specific disruptions or specific challenges or specific obstacles. You put these algorithms in place specifically to combat these, right? If X happens, then I'll do Y. If this, then what? The key is specificity. Vague intentions like I'll try harder lack sort of the triggering mechanism that makes these strategies effective. If I walk through a door, then I take a deep breath. If I wake up in the morning, then I meditate. Whatever it is, right? If this, then what? When X happens, I'll do this. It's an implementation intention, or it's an algorithm. Elite performers often develop entire catalogs of volitional responses for different performance scenarios, testing and refining them through deliberate practice. Studies with athletes in stress inoculation training programs show significantly better performance times and higher pain tolerance while maintaining technique. So those are the 3 tips. I encourage you to pause them, go over this episode, then go to episode 368, go over how to handle pressure and what that means, then put this all together and implement your, specific mental strategies or mental skills that will allow you to unlock your greatest potential, your peak performance on a consistent basis. But let's bring it all together. These 3 mental performance techniques functions as an integrated psychological system rather than, isolated tools, right? The challenge mindset creates the foundation by interpreting pressure as performance enhancing. This positive interpretation then enables effective internal association strategies, allowing you to productively monitor sensations rather than fear them. Finally, we have those volitional strategies provide the specific mental tactics to overcome the inevitable obstacles along the way. And so, when implemented together, these approaches create a powerful compounding effect. The most common challenge is the tendency to abandon these techniques at the first sign of discomfort, which is precisely when they're most valuable. Remember that psychological skills or mental skills, like physical ones, feel awkward before they become natural. Now, let's recap some key takeaways so you understand the most important things to try and implement into your life via action. We have that challenge mindset. Interpret your physiological responses to pressure as performance resources rather than threats. This isn't positive thinking, but a fundamental reframing of your relationship to stress. Then we have internal association. Develop, specific internal attention strategies for monitoring bodily sensations and technical execution rather than distracting yourself from discomfort. And then my favorite one, personally, is the volitional strategies. Create concrete, if-then implementation plans or algorithms for predictable challenges rather than relying on willpower alone when obstacles arise. And so here are some action steps to do right away, immediately. First step, start with, a simple pressure reframing practice. The next time you notice signs of nervousness before a performance, racing heart, butterflies, consciously say to yourself, this is my body giving me energy to perform well, or I'm excited. This is my body giving me energy to perform well, or I'm excited, rather than I'm anxious or I'm nervous. That's an action step to do right away. Next thing you could potentially do is develop a performance journal where you track 3 elements: pressure situations you face, how you interpret them, and specific internal cues that help maintain focus. This documentation accelerates your learning curve significantly. So those are 2 action steps to do immediately to implement some of these strategies and tips we talked about in this episode. But here is a question for you. What pressure situations are you facing in the coming week or days or months where you could experiment with reframing stress as a performance resource? Think about that and implement these strategies. Then I'd love to hear which of these techniques resonates most with your current challenges and what happens when you implement it. Remember, mental performance skills develop through practice, just like physical ones. The key is starting exactly where you are and building consistently, making those habits too small to fail. And thank you very much for your time and attention. Thank you very much for tuning in. The absolute best thing you could do to support me and this podcast is by sharing this episode with anyone who you might think might find it valuable. I hope you found it valuable. I know these strategies and techniques have definitely helped me and enhanced my life, and hopefully they will for you as well. So let me know. I'd love to hear, which of these techniques resonates most, and please share the episode with a friend. That's the best marketing tool that we have. But otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Lots of love. Cheers. Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.